Pakistan soldiers take the fight to the Taliban. This is what the West is pushing for. But the diplomatic game between America, Britain and Pakistan is also entering another phase, and its outcome will determine whether the new Afghan war strategy will work or fail. It wasn't quite daylight this morning when Gordon Brown welcomed the Pakistani Prime Minister. Mr. Brown was all empathy. After all, he suggested, his guest had come from the front line.
In these challenging times, we are bound together by a common threat, that of destructive terrorism and extremism. And Prime Minister, your country has suffered most of all from that.
And indeed, Pakistan has suffered. There have been well over 200 suicide attacks in the last 2 years. Thousands have died in terrorist bombings, from Peshawar to Islamabad. Nowhere seems safe. Even the provincial headquarters of the Pakistani intelligence, the ISI, and the Army's HQ in Rawalpindi have been hit. No one in Pakistan can now doubt the threat. Yet on Sunday, Gordon Brown was telling Pakistan's government they have to hit back harder. They have a responsibility to get Bin Laden and his deputy.
I want to make sure that the Pakistan Army and the Pakistan security services, as well as the Pakistani politicians, will make sure that in South Waziristan we're taking on al-Qaeda directly. Now, progress has been made. 30,000 Pakistan troops are in the borders of South Waziristan, but we want, after 8 years, to see more progress in taking out these top two people in al-Qaeda who have done so much damage.
South Waziristan, smack in the middle of the Afpak Badlands, just across Afghanistan's unpoliceable border. This whole region's been a battlefield since al-Qaeda and the Taliban fled Afghanistan 8 years ago. Bin Laden's believed to live here. It's where he and his allies launch attacks in all directions. America's Afghan surge will count for nothing unless this area is brought to peace.
The real question is, to me, is what will happen in the western areas of Pakistan. That is the most critical variable. But the issue of the sanctuaries is the one we should focus on.
He was speaking in the wake of President Obama's speech, in which he said the cancer of terrorism was on both sides of the Afpak border and a threat to Pakistan, a nuclear state.
In the past, there have been those in Pakistan who have argued that the struggle against extremism is not their fight, and that Pakistan is better off doing little or seeking accommodation with those who use violence. Public opinion has turned. The Pakistani army has waged an offensive in Swat in South Waziristan. And there is no doubt that the United States and Pakistan share a common enemy.
So what of common enemy number one, Osama Bin Laden? Pakistan's premier seemed puzzled in London today by the demand that they capture him.
We have a good intelligence and defense cooperation with the United States, and if there is any credible or actionable information that can be shared with Pakistan, I doubt the information which you are giving is correct, because I don't think that Osama Bin Laden is in Pakistan.
Wherever Bin Laden lays his head, his followers are undoubtedly in Pakistan. The Pakistanis know that all too well, and they've now been reminded in public by London and by Washington.